There it goes. Okay, perfect. So now that we've had our opening prayer, what would you guys prefer to start with? Do you want to touch bases on the doohickey first or jump into the case?
Let's talk about the case.
Okay. So I'll kind of just give like a brief little overview here. So I've just been calling him Coach P instead of his long name. So yeah, he has, yeah, Przeski, something of that influence. Okay, so he has his 2 rowing teams, and they have had a great record at the beginning of the year. They've been improving on the erg 10 seconds in their winter off season, and they're getting ready and set to start these huge competitions. So they go on their retreat to Atlanta, and Coach P he conducts a series of drills and tests, collecting all this objective data to kind of figure out who his strongest players are so that he can divide the team into JV and varsity. And even though varsity did well in Atlanta, once they've been back home, they've been consistently losing in their races against the JV team. And the JV's consistently outperforming them. So to no avail, Coach P, he's running more tests to try to figure out what's going on, because this varsity team obviously has a lack of synergy and low morale, amongst other problems. And now Coach P has to make this decision within a week. He can either choose to completely swap the titles of each team, he could switch up team members, or find a way to improve the varsity's performance through some type of intervention. So to start off, do you feel that the varsity members engaged in too much conflict? And what was that conflict about?
So I'll go ahead and take that one. I think part of the conflict came from them not having like a leader. They didn't have like a team captain to kind of bring everyone together. They didn't really have any goals or like anything to kind of measure themselves against. And so when they didn't perform the way they thought they should, they kind of pointed fingers at everyone else instead of like at themselves and kind of what they can do to kind of come together as a group and kind of move past whatever challenges they have to where they can work better together.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Any other thoughts?
I like what Jared said. Oh, sorry, Sarah.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I like what Jared was just saying, where they didn't have anything to really measure themselves against either, because here they were the better team, and they couldn't like try and improve. Yes, they were going against the JV, but they couldn't try and improve against better qualified or better people with regards to their scores and that kind of stuff too. Not as a team so much, but as the individuals as well. But it was definitely interesting, the fact that the teams changed from JV to varsity and how JV ended up doing so well against varsity.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Sarah, were you going to jump in?
Well, one of the things that it said in the case study was that the varsity team had a couple of different dynamics that I really thought were super important. One, that they had what they called team disruptors.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really important to me because it's psychological, which means that, and you could tell because of the emails that they sent to the coach that they actually talked about in there, where they like really got nasty and were like negative and complained about the other people on the team, and they're not pulling their weight and they're not doing this, and just pick and poke and me and mine and just those team disruptors. And just the one bad apple just makes it bad for everybody, or even the 2 bad apples make it just really awful for everyone. And this is a sport, from what I understand, because I've done quite a bit of research on it, if you are not together, the one person who's off can just mess everyone up, just mess the whole thing up. It's a sport of precision. You have to be on.
On every stroke.
One person, yeah, one person who's off can just lose you the race.
Yeah, it can derail the whole race and
Yeah,
eventually the whole team.
It's not like basketball. You can have one person who's having an off day and the 4 other people can come together and kind of, bring it up, or you can switch out and, you have other players who can, come in and go out, and that's not like this. You have 8 people and you have a coxswain, and when those people aren't exactly precisely together, and they have to be that way mentally too. That's what makes this sport so different. So I don't know, to me that made a big difference, that the psychology was so important. And then also how their coach, how he behaved was also weird. Because in the case study, it said that he had degrees in psychology and sports psychology and stuff. Like, he had several degrees with a couple of things that were pertinent to what he was dealing with, but it didn't seem like he really used those. Why didn't he?
I'll jump in as a devil's advocate, or to his defense a little bit. It says that he has years experience. What did it say? Like 8 years experience.
Yeah.
And this is the first time he's encountered this particular situation. So I think it comes down to what you guys have both said, the disruptors and the lack of leadership. It just was a new dynamic that this coach hadn't faced yet. Thank you guys for those thoughts. So speaking about the conflict that came up, the little discussion leader prep here, it gives me 2 definitions to read. There's 2 types of conflicts that scholars have identified. The first is task conflict, where people disagree about the way a task should be accomplished. And then there is affective conflict, where people have interpersonal conflict and people are frustrated and angry with one another. So I think it would be fair to say that we can see examples of both of those in this case. It's probably started out as task conflict and then worked its way into the interpersonal conflict. Would you say that there's an appropriate place for conflict to exist on this varsity team, or any team for that matter?
I think it's okay to have to try and make yourself better. A lot of times conflict can help. But I think, I don't even remember if it was this week or maybe it wasn't even in this class. I don't remember now. But there was something about the first presidency and like all the counselors and stuff.
Yeah.
And how they, was that in this class?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, that we read about that and how they,
At least I think so.
that there's conflict even there, but you have to be respectful of each other and you have to listen to each other. And I don't think this crew was really listening to each other. And I think, isn't the coxswain supposed to be the kind of the team captain? Is that?
Well,
ideally, you could just like the caller, right?
He's not really the team captain. He just is like the marksman. He keeps them on pace. He's the timer. He keeps them, he
so who
watches.
is the team captain? Just some other random rower?
It says they sit in seat number 6 or 7 or something like that. It's in the back of the case.
So the
So it
coxswain,
seemed like there was definitely a lack of a team captain then as well.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
the coxswain keeps an eye, because he's looking where they're going, and he keeps an eye on like their pace and everything, and he will speed them up or slow them down and kind of watch like their paddles or whatever they call them, and like how they're kind of rowing together and try to adjust. Like he watches all their synergy and how they're working together and try to adjust all their pacing and stuff.
Cool.
He's the person who's the expert at doing all that stuff. And he's super light. He's like the tiny dude.
You've done your research. Good girl. It's a sport that we're not too familiar with, I think, but thank you. I really liked what you said, Jolene. Conflict, I feel like, can be a driving force for good when it's the right kind of conflict and people know how to manage it. Obviously, some things here started to spiral out of control. We're going to move on to the topic of trust. So I think we've probably established that trust is necessary for this team to have success. Is trust in the team the same as trust in the individual?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, trust in the team is in each individual team member. Do you want to
Not
elaborate?
Necessarily. Because you don't have to trust each individual. You can trust your whole team, but you don't have to trust each of them individually. But you can trust your team.
I guess I kind of think the opposite. I think that in order, like I was on like a traveling team for basketball. And so when I was playing with, certain people, I knew I could trust them to be at a certain spot or to perform a certain way. And so by having confidence in each one of their abilities, I had more confidence in the team as a whole. So I get what you're saying. I just kind of have, I guess, a different take that I think I want to be able to trust everybody individually. And then naturally, I'd trust the collective whole group.
That's how I kind of view it too. You kind of have to trust each individual first, kind of like as stepping stones or the foundation before you can reach complete team trust.
I don't know. I think it just depends. I think it depends on you. It depends on you inside of you. Because trust isn't something that you get from other people. You have to give it too, You have to give it to get it, It's not just, I guess, I don't know, you have to extend it to other people as well,
Do you feel like other people have to earn your trust, maybe? Is that, or you're just saying you need to demonstrate trust in others first before people can trust you?
Yeah, you have to extend that to other people. You have to show that to other people. You have to, I read this book, and it was in my other class that I was in, and it's called The Speed of Trust. And it's by Stephen Covey's son, Stephen M.R. Covey. And what he said in there is that how you gain trust is that you have to invest your trust in other people. And it doesn't mean that you're sloppy with it. You are wise. But you extend trust. And then when you invest your trust in people, then they feel that investment of trust in them, and then they want to trust you as well.
And themselves, I would say. You help build their confidence in them. I think there's definitely power in giving people the benefit of the doubt. In this particular scenario, after the JV team had been winning consistently, it mentions how it came to a point where having a varsity position was considered prestigious. They didn't even want it anymore. So what would you say happens to team trust when you replace a team member? What happens with that team? Or what should happen?
Like if you were moved from the JV to the varsity, how would stink really badly.
Or if you're the JV team and you have a varsity team member come to your team, how do you recalibrate? Or do you open your arms to that person and automatically trust them? What do you do?
I think it would be hard to do that just because you have already become a cohesive and trusting unit as the other group. So then when they're adding on or bringing somebody in that's new, that person has to try and get in to the group and get them to all trust him or her, and then they also have to trust, and all that takes time. It's not just going to happen overnight. It's not like, oh, we have this better, faster, stronger paddler, we're going to now do really good because now we don't have the person who was a little bit weaker, even though they might have been moved to the varsity team. They're still they still got somebody that was stronger, because that's what his numbers were all about, was the strongest 8 and best or whatever. I don't remember the specific things that he had gone on the factors, but so one of the better people were down on the lower team, and then the lower team, I think that it would be, you definitely have to learn to trust on both ends, him to trust the team, and I wouldn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it really depends on the caliber of how, like, it depends on the caliber of the organization at that point. Yeah. Because this is what big teams, like, for instance, like the Seattle Seahawks, this is what big organizations like that do. They get new people every year. And if at that point you don't accept the new players who come in every year, and you don't trust them, and you're like, you're new and you're not going to fit in, then how are you ever going to become a cohesive unit? Right. How are you ever going to become one team? So that's the mark of a good organization, is when you can just say, we are a team now.
That's when you'd also hope that the coach would be, or the coach is, in the case of like the Seattle Seahawks, be able to use some team building activities. I mean, I'm sure they're not just out there practicing football, right. They're out there doing all kinds of things to make them a more cohesive unit.
Right. And that's when the skill of the coach and really how you do things comes in, and it just makes it, I don't know if you guys understand what I'm trying to say. It just makes it so that this is our team now. Those were our people before. Now we have new people. This is our team.
I think you have to kind of look at the psychological state of the group or the team. I mean, if the team's in disarray and then you're adding in new people, it's not going to function very well. I mean, when you look at this example with the JV team, it talks about how towards the end, when the coach was making changes, that anytime he put a switch and he put a varsity team member on the JV team, they actually performed better, that the JV team did better. So it like propelled them, because now they had the added strength. And I think it just has to do with the psychological state that the JV team was in. They were able to accept that newcomer, where vice versa, in the team that was in disarray, it wasn't possible. But
they started out healthy. The JV team started out healthy, and they came from a healthy place. And they were like, their place that they started out from was that we have nothing to lose. This is our team. And we're rowing for the team. We're not rowing for ourselves.
So we'll call that like the culture that the team that they had as a team. Their culture was positive, and so they accepted someone else as long as they kind of fit the culture, which I mean, everyone seemed like they wanted to perform well and to do well together.
So
the one team did it better than the other, so they had a better culture.
Yeah.
Good word. That's the word I'm looking for, culture. All right, well, let's move on. Thank you for those thoughts, by the way. Let's move on to the topic of rivalry. Do you think that the varsity would have had faster times if they had practiced alone?
Like individually alone?
Just the varsity team, like racing the clock instead of racing the JV boat.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think that they do better.
They didn't have
at
the
least
attitude.
Whenever I'm racing against someone, so I try and work out the why. And if I'm going even though I might not know the person next to me, I'll be on an elliptical and I'll be using my arms at the same time, right? And I'll try and like match their pace so that I'm going, especially if it's someone that looks really fit and strong, then it's like, okay, I need to at least try and go for a few minutes at their pace. And it just is me. I'm very competitive though too, even though
I do the exact same thing on the treadmill. Exact same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I'll just up it a little bit more.
Yep.
Yeah. That's funny. Thank you for your honesty on that. I agree. I mean, I think that the psychological factors were in play. I mean, if they have disruptors and leadership problems, racing against the clock's not really going to give them a good idea of how they're performing. But the next question asks, is fostering competition between teams within an organization harmful to the organization?
I think it can be, depending on how the teams are organized. Like I told you a little bit about like basketball team I was on, we would always break apart and do one versus the other. But we always cycled. So it wasn't like we were two separate teams. I think having two separate teams going head to head all the time can create some like feelings of like animosity, or like it takes it a little too far to where people start kind of holding a grudge against another. Like, for example, the varsity team thinking that they should win, but they don't. And so that's why I think a big source of their frustration is just saying, we're better than them, why aren't we winning? And it must not be my fault, it has to be someone else's.
Definitely. Thank you for that. So we've kind of touched on conflict, we've touched on trust and, rivalry. Are there any other problems within this group that you feel we should touch on that are contributing to the varsity's problems?
I don't think it always has to be bad. Because, like, right now, my son's in football. He's only 9, but he's in football, and they have the same age of kids. There was a lot of them when they started the team, so they split them into 2 groups. So they have the Bears white team, which is my son's team, and then they have the blue. And so then they scrimmage against each other a lot of times. But all the boys really still like each other. They don't treat each other mean or anything. And they all still really get along. And the boys, like, follow each, like, it was really funny yesterday at football practice. They, the other coach, he was yelling at his own boys. Like, he was like yelling, like, he was like, something, you did something. He was like, drop and give me like some push-ups. And so all the boys did, like, even the boys from his own, like, that weren't from his own team, they like stopped and started doing push-ups. Even they weren't hit. That's not their coach. They didn't have to.
How old is he
but
again?
I thought he's 9.
9. The innocence
Anyway.
of children, right? I think probably when you hit
But it was really cute. Like,
yeah,
it was really cute. But still, but they don't. It could get that way. It could be like, ooh, we don't like you. You're the blue team, or you're the white team. You guys suck, or whatever. But it's not like that. So it doesn't always have to be that way. Because they're both Bears teams, and they're a team together. I mean, we root for each other, and so it doesn't always have to be that way.
I'd agree. I would say that it's on the perspective, but college level sports and beyond are going to be, sometimes cutthroat, very competitive.
Church ball, maybe.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's move on to the coach. So what do you think Coach P could have done differently earlier in the season to kind of curtail or resolve the problem? I'll jump in. One of the things that really bothered me, I know this worked well for him for the first 8 years. And honestly, I'm the type of person who's very logical. I probably would have done the same thing. But it kind of bothered me that he only looked at the objective data. He only did all of his numbers and his tests and his analytical portion without even considering the personality. So I don't know. To me, I guess I would have tried to fix that from the get-go and consider those things.
In our class meeting yesterday, there was someone who had mentioned, I think he worked in HR or something, or works in HR, and he had said that or he was at maybe like a conference of some sort, a recruiting conference, and the HR people had to look at him and make sure that his personality would fit or mesh well with the team, as well as having the job skills to be able to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember
that's kind
that.
of the same. Yeah.
Yeah, like what I was saying before, that really bothered me about him before, if you didn't notice. That he had all of those like skills in his background.
Mm-hmm.
He had that degree in psychology, and like he has a lot of tools in his tool belt that he was not using, and that really disturbed me. And I was annoyed that he'd had that much experience with teams before. And supposedly they consider how many years that he'd been coaching. They consider that to be like at a master coach level. And if he's considered to be at a master coach level, then you really should be knowing how to deal with this kind of situation by then. Master coach to me means that you know how to deal with this kind of an issue. And
well, kind of, but I think on the other hand, what you're saying, he'd never dealt with it before. He can't be a master of everything related to sports and psychology and everything related. But that's not to say what he did was right. He should have done something else. But I don't know that just because he had a psychology degree 15 years before that he could apply those same things. I don't know.
Yeah, but you don't forget everything that you learn when you go to college the minute you get out. At least I hope I don't. I mean,
okay, well, so you talked about all these tools on his tool belt that he could have used, and Jared, you mentioned he could have done something different. So let's talk about the specifics. Like, what exactly do you feel he should have done different?
Well, like you were saying, he should have been paying attention to their temperaments. Like, personally, I'm just going to put it out there. I would never put up with someone who was going to act like that, like during team meetings or during like practices or whatever, and be negative. Like, if you're going to be negative, then you need to step away or you need to check yourself.
Well, the way he was handling it was he was having them email him with the problems, which I kind of felt like maybe, not that you should just air your grievances, but to just talk to the coach through email instead of in a group setting where you can work on it together to come to, something better. To me, that was something specifically he could have done differently.
Yeah, I would have brought them in.
I think by emailing them, even if he does bring it up and say, well, we had someone email ask this question, everyone's going to be looking around at everyone else saying, oh, well, who did that? Why did they say that? I think it'd be better if they just, kind of did out as a group. People can be open, honest, and fair. They'll probably be a little more nice, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then kind of go from there.
I think they just probably got too pent up and it festered over time, where if they had just been able to discuss those things early on, it wouldn't have probably gotten as bad.
Well, and that's exactly the thing, is he let it go. And I would have addressed it right away. And I would have brought that person into the office and had a person-to-person meeting with that person and said, we need to deal with this.
It seemed like all of them were doing it, though. All 8 of them had issue. That's evident when they were at the picnic table, sitting as far away from each other as they could, and each one of them were like, I'm trying my hardest. It's you guys that are not pulling your weight. You know what I mean?
And their attitude about the team building stuff when they went to the special thing in Georgia or wherever it was. Was it in Georgia?
Atlanta?
Yeah. when they went there, they were like, "Oh, this is like touchy-feely. We don't really know."
Oh, you're talking about when they brought in Coach Satan or whatever to do their
or
conditioning.
whatever. Yeah, Hammer or whatever whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they were like, it's all touchy-feely. We don't know if we're like really into this. I'd have been like,
Yeah.
you don't know if
Get
you're
on
really
board.
into this.
Get on board or you're going to be on the JV team, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, seems like we've identified a few places where he could have intervened, for sure. Any other thoughts on what he could have done differently? Okay. All right. So on the Tuesday coming up here, Coach has to make this decision. What do you think he should do from this point?
I think you should put JV as varsity
Me too.
just because they are more cohesive. They have a positive outlook. They work well together.
They have the track record.
hmm
Agreed.
They've earned
Even
it.
that was kind of my determination too. I just kind of felt that the varsity team, not that they're too far gone or not able to be helped, it just seems like the morale is so low. They're not able to trust one another. They're exhausted. They have no motivation, and they're not really taking on any like accountability for what's happening on the team. Like there's just so many things that are wrong that it seems logical to me to just switch. But on paper, varsity team is the stronger individual player. So I wonder how this JV team would be able to compete with other varsity teams.
So a thought that I had was that we talked about how we liked the culture of the JV team more. They seemed to work better together. And once that was established, if they were to kind of hold almost like tryouts again and kind of introduce these varsity players back onto like the new varsity team, if they would perform better and if they would kind of get that culture to switch over, it'd be more like the JV.
I like that idea. So like have retryouts and
yeah, because the JV's varsity initially, and then you guys can kind of do like challenge matches or whatever to kind of earn your spot back on. As long as you kind of like, if the times increase and stuff and things go better, then they fit the mold. I don't know.
Okay, I like that idea. What risks do you think would be involved in that, though?
People
might lose the team. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No. Go for it. I think we're going to say the same thing.
Yeah, just like losing the cohesiveness because now all of a sudden they're going to be jumping around. One might be back on this team, one will be switched around, and they're just going to lose that team effort. And he only has like a few days to try and make the plan or put it together or whatever. So he has to do something like right away. He doesn't have time to
structure,
do everything. Yeah, start fresh. Maybe the next year.
Yeah.
See, that's what I think would work for the next year. It would be a great plan for the next year, but because it's so close, I do think that just sticking the JV in there is the best plan. It's not great because there's nothing really great.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
They don't have great options, but like next year they could do that, and it certainly would be awesome because then they would have to earn their spot back.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to work hard. They would have to buy in. They would have to, they would have to not just have an automatic position.
I feel like those varsity team members would be like so damaged after doing that, though. Just to have that title ripped from them, and
they would. But
I wonder how it would affect them going into a new year.
At the same point, if they really wanted it, they would work for it.
Yeah,
I think it would be important to express why this is needing to be switched up, and the coach needs to express that, and how, you know, we're looking at all these, the fact that JV keeps beating you guys because they're a better cohesive unit and their morale is good and they're positive, and you guys are just not there, so you need to re-earn that. But I did like what you said too, Jackie, about how will they compete against other varsity teams that have the better skills, but what if they have good teamwork? So then you're looking at a varsity team that has the good teamwork and the good skills rather than just the good teamwork. So it would be, I think it could be a loss for them for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
you have to consider that.
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it doesn't matter what's on paper. Sometimes what's on paper doesn't matter. Sometimes it's what's inside.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think they definitely have the better team going in, and so switching them out would still be the best move, in my opinion. Just because in this experience or in this type of thing, a team is very important. If it was an individual, you know, kayaking or whatever, then that would be a little bit different. But you have to work completely as a team, and if you can't have that working for you, then you're not going to have much of a shot anyway. So you might as well put the JV team in and see how they do.
I like that idea, though, of maybe having a meeting. Though then I thought, oh, wait a minute. He kind of already tried that when they were out there at the picnic table. Maybe he wasn't as, with everyone. Maybe he wasn't, like, I don't want to say as severe with them or as forceful, but I don't know. It's time to get really serious and address the specific issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so what were some of the other options? So what do you think about him just mixing the teams? Do you think that would be a plausible idea?
Well,
or what are the pros and cons?
To me, he tried that before, and I don't know. He tried that before, and it kind of didn't work, and I just think that, in my opinion, the JV team earned it. And to, like, sort of kick some of them off and not give them the opportunity wouldn't be fair. It would be like saying, well, some of you earned it and some of you didn't.
Well, it's all about performance, and they performed better when they had one varsity member on the team, like on the team with the JV. So in that case, I'd say it seemed like either of them because it seemed like they did it multiple times. So I mean, to like deciding who should be on, that's up to the coach to decide. But I think mixing them, they'll perform better because it's already been proven that they do. But like what the right mix ratio is, I have no idea. That's something he'd have to figure out.
Yeah.
And then I would worry about how long before the culture would change amongst the next group.
Yeah.
So, but they did perform better. Their times increased when they mixed up the teams.
Yeah.
But you know what? You're right, Sarah. He had tried that. It seemed like over the entire season, he was racing and doing seat races and trying to find the right combo, and he wasn't really willing to pull the trigger to make a permanent change. So it would kind of be hard for him to do that now with 1 week away from the big competition.
And to me, I just feel like if I was on the JV team and if I had been consistently winning over the time, and then I was the one who had to be out when it came to the nationals, that would really stink.
Crush you,
and the rest of the people got to go. And I was the 1 or 2 people who had to not go. That would just be the worst. That would be the worst.
I agree.
You said
you ended up being the one.
Is a good point, Sarah. Just the fact that they earned it over the season, how they kept beating varsity as a team, then they would deserve to go.
I don't know. And I guess, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. And I know it's like, okay, if they mix it up, they had a faster time. But if you look at like their performance over the time. They had the steady numbers and they were consistent and they did win like over the time. And to me, that's got to count for something.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like you defended that point well. And I mean, we all kind of agreed that we thought he should just switch the teams. So I think we kind of ruled out that middle idea. The third option was for him to try to light a fire under this existing varsity team and get them to build some last-ditch unity here. What tactics do you think he should use if he's to go that route?
I think they kind of just feel like the group powwow, just kind of get everyone together, get the frustrations out, kind of move on, and then go from there. Because I think he's been more subtle in the past, especially like, just email me the problems, and kind of the subtlety isn't working. So whatever it is needs to be kind of quick, and so they can just kind of have a big explosion, and then just move on, get over it.
Well, on that note, because you're like right on topic there, let me read you what he actually did. There was an article.
Did they have him fight?
In, they did.
Yeah.
CNN Money and Fortune Magazine did a little bit on it, and it explains what he ended up doing. So it says, Colonel P, coach of the Army crew at West Point a few years ago, faced a baffling problem. Through extensive testing, he had developed objective criteria to rank his rowers. He then put the 8 best, his dream team, in the varsity boat and the 8 others in the junior varsity boat. The problem, though, was that the JV beat the varsity 2/3 of the time. The situation, as explained in the Harvard Business School case, was that the varsity was full of resentment over who was contributing most, while the JV, feeling that they had nothing to lose, supported one another happily. One day, Coach P lined up the varsity crew in 4 pairs, and then he told them to wrestle, no punching, for 90 seconds. And there were no clear winners. Each man was discovering that his opponent was just as strong and determined as he was. Coach P then had them change opponents and wrestle again. By the 3rd round, they were choosing their own opponents. One guy would point to another one and say, "You," Brzezinski says. Finally, one of the rowers started laughing, and they all piled into a general brawl. Eventually, someone said, "Coach, can we just go row now?" And from then on, the varsity team flew. So I think that would only happen among men. Like, seriously, girls are much too
It's true.
Like
it's
that.
really true. Guys are like, we're going to punch each other, and then everything's going to be fine.
And now we're good.
We're going to have a
Jared,
big old fight, and then everything's going to be okay now.
Yeah. I know, I was kind of baffled by that, but you know what? It made sense. I think that the title of it was Letting Conflicts Fester. Coach P just let it go on for too long. They didn't have an outlet to express what their problems were and the things that they, were feeling. Not that guys want to talk about feelings, but they needed to address the concerns. Some felt that they were putting in more time and effort than others.
Did they end up winning the championship then? Or did it say?
But we should look that up for sure. So there's a little side note here. It says that obviously this could only work at a military school where the team members were trained in combat. Even then, someone could have been seriously harmed and Coach P would have been in serious trouble. But thinking about that, what other approaches may have worked? And maybe not just in this particular scenario, but in real, actual workplace teams. What are some similar approaches?
I think having a competition of some sort, brain-wise, or like putting together a puzzle or building something, or even like we sometimes play volleyball or pickleball, or at the Y, that's where I work, and so just, I don't know, making it more of a competition to just get you kind of
Building
out there.
unity.
I think, yeah, throwing even like one of those what are they called, kickboxing bags or whatever, or punching bags, boxing bags, where you can hang them from your garage. I think that will help get out some aggression as well if they had those during trainings or something. Just be able to punch on it and kick on it,
I kind of thought of like those bubble suits that people wear now, where like they can run around, have the bubbles, they can go like just go tackle each other, but no one gets hurt. Something
like a
that would be pretty
wrestler,
fun.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I tried to picture myself like in an office setting, and actually, I feel if I'm drawing from real life experience, I can recall a time I worked in a dental office for about 8 years, and there was a point where everyone was pretty frazzled and frustrated, and it was a doctor's office. The doctor got a whiteboard out, and he was like, "Okay, let's talk." He would call it housekeeping. What's going on? And it was like an airing of grievances where people kind of just started calling out stuff. Some were reserved and didn't really want to, bring out the problem that they felt was, at the core. But I think it just helped that the doctor was opening himself and listening to what we had to say as a staff and where our frustrations were coming from. And once we felt heard, we were able to kind of move past that and get out of that bad groove, if you will.
I think sometimes doing a, positive meeting where you some of it's kind of cheesy, but where you say something nice about someone, or, you don't have to do that kind of cheesiness, but, in some of our team building things, we'd toss a string around, a ball of string or ball of yarn, and then you kind of look at the fact that you're all connected. And I think we did that in Relief Society one year as well.
You're like building a web, right?
Yeah. But you're all
Yeah.
connected, and if you cut one of them, then you lose the whole thing. So it just kind of, help that. But when we were tossing it, we were also supposed to say something nice about the person that we were tossing it to. So just helping to other people feel good about what they're doing or who they are or that kind of thing is very morale building. And in a rowing team, I think that could have helped. I don't know, with all these military men, though. Maybe it'd be too touchy-feely.
I think that's great. I actually, I'm taking a conflict management class, which is really good. These two kind of fall line in line. But I read a talk about positive perspective and optimism, and it was talking about this study where for 21 days someone was asked to write down 3 new things that they were grateful for, that they appreciated, and at the end of the 21 days their perspective had changed. Instead of looking for what was wrong, they were able to change their mentality, and they started looking for the things that were right in life, and it created an optimism where, now in our day and time, you turn on the news and everything is so negative, and there's so many bad things going on. It's easy to get caught up in all the bad. But if you can kind of change your perspective and look for the good in people, I don't know, that to me is like an interpersonal skill that we talked about earlier, having the benefit of the doubt, just trusting people, lending them that trust, and then they start to have that self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, this person trusts me and believes in me. And it can do a lot for your team, I think. So, any other thoughts before I put Jared to sleep?
No, it wasn't that.
It's 11 o'clock at night where you're at. I feel so bad for you.
No, it's fine. I actually have to go in a few minutes. I got to get some stuff done before midnight. But
okay. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up. I have some wrap-up questions. Real quick, what's the most important thing you learned from this case? Jared, go.
Most important thing, like a lack of communication can really affect the overall performance of the team or group that you're working with.
Perfect. Jolene, what's the most important thing?
I think being able to just work as a team. Just work as a team. That psychological. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. Sarah, how about you?
Just having a positive attitude and how you treat others. If you can treat others with love, if you can come at it and really think about other people with and try to view them how the Savior would view them.
Perfect. Thank you for tying in the Savior to that. That was actually going to be my closing thought. But
I'm sorry.
No, that's
I
perfect.
stole it.
So I'll change gears here. I'll just relate it to my conflict management class. I feel like if you catch things early instead of letting them fester and snowball into something worse, that it's important for you to try to curtail that in the beginning. So, that way you're not as hot-headed. You can handle it more calmly. So that's what I'll go with.
But it's never too late. It's never too late.
But it is never too late. That is true. Okay, so on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate today's quality of the discussion? So, Jared?
10.
10 for
Yeah.
Sarah?
I'd say
10.
like 9 or 10. I felt we did work well together and had some good discussion.
Cool. Jolene?
I'd agree. I'd say 10 also. You ran it really well. You kept us on point. I think we all had a chance to share our thoughts about different variety of things. So yeah, I think it went really well.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question was to ask what you liked about my leadership in this. So thank you. Is there anything that I could do better next time?
I can't really think of anything. Yeah.
Thank you. This is part of building teamwork. We're supposed to be honest and trust one another to tell us the truth. So
I think you were very organized, and so you started out. You kept us on task, and I think that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you. Sarah, any thoughts? You can be honest.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that we meant, are we supposed to go over the doohickey thing?
Yeah.
So
The outline here, like seriously, it should take us a full hour just to do the case discussion, which we're right on that. I know Jared needs to take off, but let's just talk real briefly. If you need to go, Jared, go. But
No, I got a few minutes.
Okay, so the doohickey case.
So I didn't know, like, I just wasn't sure if the whole thing took an hour or if I didn't know. So
the way that
I
this
just thought
breaks
that
down, it's like almost more than an hour, it seems. So I tried to stay on task and go through like the most important key items. But
no, you did fine. I just thought that I thought that we had to cover all of it in an hour. So then I'm like, we're really forgetting the doohickey thing.
No, I wanted to round back to it. The doohickey thing, I mean, when I sent out the email, did it make sense to you, Jared, how we discussed breaking it down?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, Sarah, you were going to take teamwork, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So reading through the doohickey case, there's a lot of teamwork issues here. Plenty to choose from.
Yep.
Do you have any preliminary thoughts on what you want to focus on?
I certainly do.
Okay.
There's a lot. There's just a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so let me look. First of all, okay, sorry, my paper is in the way of my camera.
Just real quick, Jackie, did you send that to me through like my school email or through the Gmail account?
I sent it through the Gmail, and it was a breakdown of the leader schedule we talked about, the doohickey leader schedule. It was basically a review of everything that the three of us talked about last week when you were out of town.
Okay.
Did you get that one?
Here we go. I was having a hard time finding it, but I got it now.
No problem. So if you look down towards the bottom of that email, we talked about how on this week that I would be the leader for the doohickey.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I shouldn't say this week, but this round on week 5, it'll be 2. And then that because we have 3 weeks of discussion and topics,
Mhm.
that we would just divide that up between the remaining 3 group members, and that
Okay.
the leader would take care of doing the introduction and the conclusion and being like the editor. So
Mhm.
Sarah is going to do something from this week's topic, which was on teams.
Okay.
And then Jolene is going to take next week's, which leaves you week 5 on sexual harassment. So sorry, that's what happens when you
Hey,
don't.
that's all right. That was the number one problem I found from the case thing. So
Yeah, it's pretty
That's fine, I don't
blatant
mind.
that that's an issue, so it shouldn't be too hard to.
shouldn't be
So.
too hard to find stuff about it.
No. So, okay, Sarah, did you want to share with us a couple of your thoughts on what you're going to cover?
So a couple of the things was the first thing that really came out was that now I think it's a team thing, but it's sort of not a team thing, but it's like an anti-team thing, is that the whole of all the managers are like all the friends.
Yeah, so there's some hiring problems where they're just hiring people they know who maybe aren't exactly skilled.
So it's not like a group of like people who are different and diverse and everything. So it's just a bunch of group of friends. So it's not really a team. It's an anti-team.
I would agree with that. I think that's because you have to come up with 4 different solutions. So that's probably one place that you could start.
So I don't know how that's like a team. I don't know if that is a team thing, but it's like, I don't know if anti-team is a thing, but it's not really a team. So to me, that's a thing. It's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think, Jolene and Jared?
Well, I'm going to actually take off so I can finish some other work. But if you guys have any questions, like feel free to email me, or I can answer any questions about my topic as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks,
Fortunately,
guys.
we have a couple more weeks before we'll be covering your stuff, so you have time to think about it too. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Bye, Jared.
Bye.
I'm trying to, it's been a couple days since I read through this, so I'm just trying to remember. I remember the management all being, all friends and stuff, but I'm trying to think if there was a better one that would be the problem, with regards to working as a team. But I don't see I think that is a problem. But it still sounds that they work well together, having this big group of friends, right?
Well, on the back page, it talks about how the communication between managers to factory workers is very poor. So maybe in that
that's the team. Yes.
As a full team, they're not coming together. They're kind of segregated, and it probably because the management is a little cliquey.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think if you maybe present it that way.
Yeah.
And one of the solutions would be to not have all of these people be friends, I think.
Yeah. And then another thing that I saw was there's no team for there's no new employee team. There's no HR team. There's no new employee training. There's no HR team whatsoever. There's no new employee training. There's no information for benefits. There's no. He doesn't he doesn't know anything about any of the stuff.
This is one messed up company.
He's like, I don't know anything about my insurance. I don't know anything about, it just lists all the things that he doesn't know.
And that could be more related to just an HR, from the HR standpoint of not having an HR person until we come along, or the person that gets hired.
Even if you don't have an HR department, usually you have people who train you to do your work.
Yeah, you would have, because right now it's just kind of segmented by a group of friends who are managers and then the rest are workers. Are there any little groups within the within the factory workers, like this one's your team leader and you're kind of grouped and this is who you report to. You know what I mean? Is it organized? I don't think it's organized into teams. I see what you're saying.
So, and it doesn't seem to be that there's really like, most companies have like some sort of, most companies have like this sort of tier structure of, do you know what I mean? Like they have like
the
a
middle management or supervisors.
Have you ever seen those like charts where it has the top guy and then it has the things that come down and then it has who's under who and the departments and then how it kind of goes down like that.
It's like the CEO, the CFO, which is like the
and then it tells you who's under them and then the managers under them.
Yep. And then supervisors and leads. Yeah. Leads is another word for.
So I'm not really sure if this is really organized like that. And you couldn't really tell if it was.
Yeah.
And I definitely think our poor guy who's just been hired as the HR person, it hasn't been given that information. So I think that's a great topic that you could cover.
And then it says here, so for hiring manufacturing workers, the line managers each use their own procedure. So like each of the manufacturing workers they just use, there's no cohesion between each of the, so they have the line managers, but each of them uses a different one.
Yeah.
For all the workers on each different line use a different procedure.
So they need some type of like standardized process for everything that they do so that there's cohesion again for each of these managers.
Right now I'm taking another class, the what's the name of it? It's the Operations and Procedures Management. Mm-hmm. My teacher would have a heyday with this place. He would be like, oh no. Because that's just a mess. That's just a mess. Yeah. Each of the lines are doing something completely different.
Yeah.
That's a lot of waste of money.
Definitely productivity. Like they don't have, what's their common goal here? Like it was talking about how they have seasonal demand coming up. It was talking about how they have this huge order that they don't feel like they're going to be able to fill. It doesn't seem like they're very goal oriented as a team.
So they don't. So they don't do the same thing either as far as how they hire people.
Yeah.
So they don't hire people the same way. So each of the line managers, they do production on their lines different, and then they hire people different.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not coordinating anything. So
the whole thing is not really working as a team. The whole process, the whole business.
he wants to find like 4 things. I could probably find 15 in here. Like, I don't think I could find 15, but.
Well, and some of these can kind of be related into other topics as well. So, I think we definitely want to kind of pick and choose which ones are specific
more important. Yeah.
Or sexual harassment, or I don't even remember. Yeah. Mine was like kind of a weird one, so that's why I don't remember it. Like making differences count or something. Making differences matter.
I'm guessing that's probably going to deal with diversity, just based on that topic. But no, I would think that the what you're bringing up with the individual line managers would fall under your organizational hierarchy. That would be something you could branch underneath that to expand about for that solution. I definitely feel would recommend that you touch on the culture in this environment. It seems like they're making rude comments to one another. There's, factory workers just don't understand anything is one of the comments that was made. So they're not really trusting one another. There's poor communication. The culture is poor.
also they said that they're they're gonna organize a union.
Yeah, so they're
So
obviously
they're-
very upset with the way things are being ran
Yeah.
currently.
mhm.
So I would definitely touch on that,
So-
like the actual cultural environment and the interpersonal stuff at work.
So, and here's this one up here where he says that he has to fire this guy because he just talked back to the supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
So
a
the
little bit of
supervisor
tension
and about the
there.
supervisor's power and the power. And then somewhere in here, don't hire women.
Oh
don't
yeah,
don't
where
hire
was
any
that?
women.
And that's going to be the whole
That page
maybe diversity
4,
one, or even sexual harassment.
Yeah, don't hire women at the bottom of the page 4, bottom of the first paragraph. Let's see. Company agreement not received.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's something that you'll probably touch on, Jolene, that they're all white men.
Yep.
So they're not really diversified as far as gender or race. And the fact that they're all friends, I mean, they're not going to probably be very diverse in experience and stuff either.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot wrong. I think we'll be able to, with all of our topics, and
Yes.
we have this for this scenario, which I thought it would be a lot bigger and longer too. But this scenario is the whole quarter, so it'll be interesting if there are some things that are almost right in there.
And I don't
with
think
something
they
else.
could have just packed this any more full of stuff.
That's true. That is true.
I liked the term that Brother Bonnie talked about putting on different lenses. So as we go through these future topics, we'll start having other things jump up out at us,
Yes.
like
Yes.
the safety problems and the health, I
Benefits.
focused on the like the OSHA and then on turnover and pay. So there's all these different areas that will.
So
Yeah.
is this going to be the same doohickey for the whole semester?
Yes, that's what I was just saying. Yeah.
So every time,
So
every
people
time we
pick this apart. We're going to pick this case apart is really what it's going to come down to.
yeah.
So really, we just have to leave some stuff for later.
Yeah.
Well, you just have to make sure the stuff that we're choosing now is just applicable to the week we're learning. But I can already tell in this discussion that we're going to have some overlay.
Yeah.
So we'll need to decide who's going to cover what, because each of our 12 solutions have to be different.
Okay.
So, the fact that they're only hiring women, are we going to have that be sexual harassment or a diversity problem for this particular paper? So that's something that we'll have to just work on during these little meetings. I think
there is the
one
about the lady who does say that she gets harassed.
That's at
And
the
they
bottom
make
of
jokes
4.
To her and stuff. So that one's definitely going to be a sexual harassment one as well.
And then there's also the one at the bottom of the top paragraph of 4. But then there's also
and that could be the diversity.
Yeah, but that's also there's a little bit. That's also only one sentence.
Yeah,
but it's a jumping point. You can write out the whole thing. And he said to use outside sources. So you take women in the workplace and you can run with that. I mean, even that article, Sarah, that you and I were talking about, how did you see the For Your Consideration posts this week or last week about how having women in your team actually boosts intelligence?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you can team better.
Yeah, there you go. So you can take the outside source to support your claim of what this company is doing incorrectly.
Yeah.
So even though it's just one sentence, we'll be fine, I think.
Oh yeah. We'll be able to definitely get a lot of stuff from it.
For sure. So Sarah, it sounds like to me you're on a great track, that you're pulling out all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
So
there's plenty in here. So
yeah.
But so what did we say? We just said we're going to submit it to you, right?
Yeah,
Not
send
every
me,
week, towards the end.
yeah, once you're done working on it, type it up and send it to me, and I'm just going to look for the cohesiveness between each 3 parts so that they bridge well, and then I'll be writing the introduction and the conclusion based on what you guys say, you know, as kind of an overview and
And
our
I
final
just have to
thoughts.
come up with 3 problems and then 4 solutions, right?
No, you just need to come up with one problem with regards to teamwork.
1 problem?
And 1 problem and 4 solutions.
1 problem and 4 solutions.
Yes. And then
Oh.
I'll
Or
come
you
up
just
with 1
say that
problem.
I kind of looked at it as the problem is teamwork, and that is the problem.
Yeah.
And then you can give your 4 solutions here of how they need to reorganize their structure, how they need to have standards and procedures so that each group and each team flows well, and they need to work on their team culture so that, you know,
Yeah,
they
that's
work as
true.
a team.
Okay. So if I'm doing that though, wouldn't I have to like tell you kind of what approaches I'm going to take so that they don't conflict with what everybody else is going to say?
Maybe
That's
what we can plan for is for you to have your part, maybe not completely done, but at least the general
The subjects of
ideas,
what I'm
yeah,
going to,
have
yeah.
it done by the time our next meeting rolls around, so that I'm going in and I'm going to say, okay, well, now she's talked about these things. So for me, I need to make sure I talk
about those things.
Yeah. And I would do the same for Jared for the next week, so that when he goes to do his part, does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that will work well.
Okay.
There is one question I had too regarding the, so like number 4 on the doohickey assignment. So you have to come up with the 3 problems, and then you have to come up with the 4 possible solutions. So that's what we've already just covered. And then it says, in light of all the problems and solutions you identified, explain what is the most important thing to focus on. Describe why you think this is the key issue. Describe pros, cons, obstacles, etc. This portion of the paper should include deep reflection and application of content studied in the class as it informs the problem and solution. This isn't just a single paragraph repeating what you already said about the problem and solution. Give a detailed account that explains why this issue is the highest priority. So is that like a whole other paragraph, or is that kind of the conclusion that we would write? Is that
for each like subject for like the teams, and then we do like an overview of what we consider to be the most important thing about teams, or is that about the whole thing, do you think?
it sounds like to me it's about the whole thing. So we need to pick which one is the most important after we're done writing it. Is that what you kind of think, Jackie?
Yeah, that's kind of throwing me for a loop. I remember reading that, but then he sent out an example paper. Do you remember looking at the example? I'm trying to remember where
I have it right
I don't
here.
remember if I looked at it yet.
It was like 13 pages long, but it had, or 12 pages long, but it had a title page, and then it had a couple bibliography pages.
Right.
And it didn't seem to me, let me go back and look for it. I don't remember where he posted that. Was it in one of his, I think it was in one of his teacher posts.
I've got
Maybe.
it right here. I'm reading it.
Okay.
Problem 3. Okay, hold on. Okay. Solution 2, solution 3, solution 4. Conclusion. Okay.
It's taking forever though. Oh, there it goes.
Because really it seems like we, as in me, Sarah, and Jira, do the basically 1, 2, and 3 in our paragraph.
Okay.
Right? And then number 4, that's,
okay.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry. So sorry.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
On this, there's a paragraph for the introduction. The first problem is sexual harassment, and it has the 4 solutions.
Okay.
The second problem is discrimination.
Okay.
The third problem is the lack of managerial diversity. And then there's the conclusion. So in the conclusion, it tells sexual harassment can be eliminated at Doohickey Unied Incorporated only if a policy is developed, training is implemented, and employees feel a sense of security when sharing possible sexual blah blah encounters. Special consideration should be taken to educate every employee. So from reading that, from what I understand, the conclusion is including that bit about what you consider to be the most important element.
Okay.
And then
so it
you
sounds like
give
that I'll be
little
responsible for
conclusion
that.
right at the end. Do you have this example?
I just pulled
Okay.
it up just as you were finishing reading it, and so I am looking at that, and I see that the conclusion is about 4 short paragraphs, and they've obviously, for this group, they chose sexual harassment as the most important topic out of the 3 they presented,
And it
and
looks
then they
like,
explained how to resolve it.
Is the conclusion 4 paragraphs?
yes.
No?
Yeah, but they're small, like they're like 2
Yeah.
or 3 sentences each.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's
Honestly, they look like they're 1 sentence.
Yeah, the last one is 1 sentence, which is
So is
absolutely
this, yeah.
not okay in
Okay.
English. And that is not okay with me. That needs to go
All
up
right.
on the previous one. But
For sure.
yeah, it looks like that the last paragraph that's not a paragraph is just really the conclusion. The other
Okay.
3 before that are the bit about the most important thing that you think.
Well, and 1 kind of would be the intro, number 1.
No.
Right.
The conclusion part. The conclusion part, the first little 3 paragraphs are that
The thing that I read.
yeah, that
Okay.
important part that he's saying, pick the most important thing. And that little tiny bit at the last bit that's not really a paragraph, that's the conclusion, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
and honestly, that could fit in the problems they talk about there. The benefits would be benefits of doing the sexual harassment training too. So it sounds to me, to answer your question, Jolene, that paragraph you read about choosing the most important problem and describing it, and falls on the leader of the doohickey as the conclusion.
Okay.
Goes in part of the conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the conclusion is not just a review of everything that was talked about. It's an actual, here's how we would solve the most important problem.
Okay.
So I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah. Well, I figure, it'll be my turn soon enough too, so I want to make sure I'm following what I need to
Yeah,
follow.
we know what we're doing.
Okay.
So,
No,
but
that's
yeah,
awesome.
and the beginning introduction was super short too.
Yeah. It was only like a paragraph, right?
Yeah, a real paragraph though, because there was 3 sentences in it.
So
No
I feel
way.
I'm pretty
There's
I'm pretty
only 2.
skilled at writing papers, but I'll make sure I send you a draft before I submit it, Sarah. You get your stamp of approval on it.
but it's just that I'm just a little bit OCD. Okay, I will admit that. I will.
It probably doesn't hurt to have all of us look it over just to get, if there's any grammatical or sentence structure that, not to say that you do really good, but, sometimes other people's
It's
eyes
true.
catch things that you might not. So,
Absolutely,
really
especially in a 13-page paper that we'll probably be doing like that week. Definitely, I would love. I feel we should each kind of review it and give any last-minute editing changes. Because
Yeah.
we all get the same grade. It all has our name on it.
Do you want to have us do it in Google Docs first, so that we can all edit it live, and then you can just move it then to a Word document?
We could do that. I hate Google Docs. I'll admit that, but I'll do it if the group wants to. I don't know. I know it's convenient because everyone can edit it, but
You don't
here's the
have to
thing.
do everything in there. You could just do the main body of the text.
Yeah,
'Cause-
that's true. The thing is, I'm trusting that each of you are going to submit your best work to me, and that I'm just going to, lay it out. I don't think that I'll probably have to make too many changes to your individual sections.
Yeah.
So then I'll write the introduction, and then I'll write the conclusion based on what we talk about in our third week
Just
to
a
figure
second.
out. Sure.
Son, are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong? Are you okay? Is your tummy hurting? Go into the bathroom.
It's no fun.
I don't know. He woke up, so I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
I think we're probably at a good closing point anyway.
Yeah.
So that way you could take care of him. And I think we've done, quite a bit of talk on the doohickey and then also on our other stuff. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
So
Good-
anyway-
good to hear then.
So yeah, it's good. We're good. I'm
Okay.
good. You're good. We're all good.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and stop the broadcast now.
Okay.